Let me tell you about the day I watched my family's empire crumble, and how their embarrassing daughter became their boss. I'm Sarah Chen, and this is a story about patience, power, and the sweetest revenge served in the boardroom. Growing up in the Chen family meant one thing: business was everything. My father, Richard Chen, built Chen Global Investments from nothing, turning it into a $500 million investment firm. My older brother, Michael, was groomed from birth to take over. Me? I was the family disappointment, the daughter who just couldn't grasp the complexities of high finance. Sarah, dear, my mother would say during our lavish family dinners, perhaps you should focus on finding a suitable husband instead of pursuing this career of yours. She'd say career like it was a dirty word, her perfectly manicured nails tapping against her wine glass. What they didn't know was that while they were busy looking down their noses at my job as an executive assistant at Rivera Corp, one of the largest investment firms in the country, I was learning everything about their precious family business, every weakness, every vulnerability, every skeleton in their golden closets. It started 10 years ago, when I was fresh out of business school. Despite graduating summa cum laude from Harvard, my father refused to give me a position at Chen Global. The business world is no place for emotional decisions, he declared during a family meeting. Michael will take over when I retire. Sarah, your brother will find you a suitable position in HR or marketing. My brother smirked from across the table, already celebrating his assured ascension. That night, I made a decision that would change everything. If they wouldn't give me a chance to prove myself in the family business, I'd build my own path. I accepted a position as an executive assistant to James Rivera, CEO of Rivera Corp. My family was horrified. An assistant. Michael laughed at the next family gathering. God, it's embarrassing introducing you at parties. This is my sister. She gets coffee for a living. Little did they know that James Rivera had become my mentor. He saw what my family refused to see, a sharp mind for business and an unparalleled work ethic. While I appeared to be just an assistant, I was learning every aspect of the investment world from one of its masters. Your family's blindness is their weakness, James told me one late night as we reviewed acquisition strategies. Use it, build your strength in the shadows. And build I did. Every bonus, every penny of my salary went into carefully calculated investments. James guided me, teaching me to spot opportunities others missed. I lived in a modest apartment, drove a used car, and played the role of the struggling assistant perfectly. Meanwhile, my brother was running Chen Global into the ground. His flashy lifestyle and risky investments were bleeding the company dry. But my father was too proud to see it. Every family dinner became a showcase of Michael's brilliant business acumen, while I sat quietly, watching, learning, and planning. The real turning point came 3 years ago. Chen Global was facing a crisis. A series of bad investments had left them vulnerable. They needed a cash injection fast, but quietly. Any public knowledge of their weakness would tank their stock price. That's when Rivera Corp, through a series of shell companies, began buying Chen Global shares at a premium. My family was relieved. Someone was providing the capital they desperately needed without asking too many questions. They never bothered to look closely at who was behind those shell companies. They never knew that their disappointing daughter had spent years building a fortune. They never knew that James Rivera had helped me structure the purchases to hide my identity. They never knew that while they mocked my little assistant job, I was becoming one of the most successful private investors in the city. The day everything changed started like any other family meeting. The Chen family gathered in the main boardroom of Chen Global, ready to discuss the company's future. Father sat at the head of the table, Michael to his right, looking smug as ever. Before we begin, my father announced, I want to address the ownership structure of Chen Global. As you know, we've had significant investment from outside parties over the past few years. I checked my phone, pretending to be disinterested. Right on cue, James Rivera walked into the boardroom. What's he doing here? Michael demanded, recognizing the CEO of Rivera Corp. James smiled. I'm here to introduce you to your majority shareholder. The room went silent. My father's face paled. What do you mean? I own the majority of Chen Global. Not anymore, I said quietly, putting down my phone. I do. The look on Michael's face was worth every second of the past 10 years. That's impossible, he sputtered, his perfectly tailored suit suddenly feeling too tight. Sarah's just an assistant. She can barely afford her rent. James slid a folder across the table. The numbers don't lie, Mr. Chen. Through a series of strategic acquisitions over the past 3 years, Ms. Chen has acquired 51% of Chen Global's shares. She is now the majority shareholder. My father grabbed the folder, his hands shaking as he flipped through the documents. Every purchase was there, meticulously documented. His face grew redder with each page. You, he finally managed to say, looking at me like he was seeing me for the first time. You did this. I smiled, the same polite smile I'd worn through years of their condescension. Would you like me to get you some water, father? You look a bit pale. Michael jumped to his feet. This is ridiculous. She must have manipulated the numbers. She's trying to steal our company. Steal? I laughed softly. No, dear brother. I bought it. Legally. With money I earned through smart investments while you were busy running our family's legacy into the ground. I stood up and walked to the head of the table, my heels clicking against the marble floor. Let me show you something interesting. I connected my laptop to the projector, and spreadsheets filled the screen. These are Chen Global's financial records for the past 5 years. Notice anything? My father's eyes widened as he recognized the patterns. The risky investments, the covered-up losses, the creative accounting that had kept the company afloat. Michael's brilliant business strategies cost this company $150 million in the last 3 years alone. I continued. The only reason Chen Global didn't collapse was because of my capital injections through those shell companies. You're lying, Michael shouted, but his voice cracked. He knew every word was true. The board meeting starts in 30 minutes, I said, checking my watch. I've invited all major shareholders and board members. Would you like to explain to them how you lost $150 million, or should I? My father stood up slowly, his authority crumbling before my eyes. What do you want? Want? I raised an eyebrow. I already have what I want. I own the majority of Chen Global. The question is, what are you willing to do to stay involved with the company at all? The next 30 minutes were chaos. My mother arrived, summoned by Michael's frantic texts. She took one look at the situation and burst into tears, begging me to be reasonable. Reasonable? I echoed. Like when you were reasonable about my career choices, or when you were reasonable about my capabilities? The board members began arriving and the truth came out. Every bad decision, every covered-up loss, every instance of Michael's incompetence was laid bare. By the end of the meeting, the vote was unanimous. Michael was out as CEO. And the new CEO, the head of the board, asked. I smiled. I believe I know someone qualified for the position. Someone who's been learning the investment business from one of the best in the industry. I nodded at James, who returned my smile. You. Michael laughed desperately. You're an assistant. Was an assistant. I corrected him. Now I'm the majority shareholder and CEO of Chen Global Investments. And you, dear brother, are fired. The next few months were a whirlwind of changes. I restructured the company, cut the dead weight, and implemented the strategies I'd learned from James. Chen Global's stock price doubled within a year. My father tried to approach me several times, always with the same message. We're family. Family? I would reply. Funny how I only became family after I took control of the company. Mother was more direct in her attempts at reconciliation. How could you do this to your own brother? She demanded one day, barging into my office. I looked up from my desk, my father's old desk. The same way you did it to your daughter. The difference is, I earned this position. Michael was just born into it. As for Michael, he didn't take his fall from grace well. Last I heard, he was trying to start his own investment firm. No one would invest with him. The story made waves in the business world. Assistant becomes CEO in shocking takeover, read the headlines. I gave one interview to the Financial Times where I explained my journey. Success, I told the reporter, isn't about being born into the right family or having the right title. It's about patience, persistence, and being underestimated by the right people. James retired last year, but not before we merged Rivera Corp with Chen Global, creating one of the largest investment firms in the country. He still calls occasionally to check on his former assistant. Yesterday, I received an invitation to speak at my old business school. The topic? Breaking the glass ceiling in family businesses. I accepted with a smile. The students will probably expect to hear about conventional career paths and gradual progress. Instead, I'll tell them about a young woman who spent 10 years being underestimated, who turned every dismissive comment into fuel for her ambition, who learned that sometimes the best way to break the glass ceiling is to buy the whole building. Because in the end, success isn't about proving others wrong, it's about proving yourself right. And sometimes the sweetest victory comes not from the power you gain, but from the look on people's faces when they realize they should have seen you coming. As I sit in my office overlooking the city, I can't help but smile at the frame on my wall. It's my old assistant ID badge from Rivera Corp. Under it is a quote I had engraved: "Never underestimate the assistant taking notes in the corner. She might own the company one day." And that's exactly what I did.